every JSX tag that you write like HTML tag, this is known as JSX. So everything, so this complete entire thing is also JSX. So it's JavaScript with XML syntax. So this is HTML tags. Entire HTML that you write is a JSX, is known as JSX. So this is like right now, if you see, this is all static content and there is no dynamic part. So if I want to display some dynamic information, let's say I want to display name. I want to display any name, any dynamic content you want to display, you need to display it inside curly bracket. So you need to open and close curly bracket, and inside that you add any dynamic or JavaScript variable that you can use. So if I say, you can see mic is displayed here. So what goes inside this curly bracket is only expressions. So what are expression in JavaScript is something which will evaluate to some value, like which will return some value. You cannot use anything here which is not returning a value. So string you can use number also. So I have number equal to 10, that you can use. So if I use number, it will get displayed here. Then boolean also you can use, but by default boolean does not get displayed. So when I try to display this is logged in, so if I will write it here, you can see after is logged in colon there is nothing getting displayed. So I am printing this value of is logged in false value. So if I inspect this, you can see after is logged in there is a space, and after that there is nothing. So by default Java React ignores boolean, then undefined. If I display undefined, that is also not displayed, and null. So if you have something which evaluates to undefined, null and boolean, these will be ignored whenever you are displaying in JSX. So this is known as JSX syntax. So this here inside it we write an expression. So that JavaScript expression syntax. So what goes inside it is anything which returns some value, and if you have null, undefined and boolean value, those will be ignored by React and those will not be displayed. But let's say I want to display this is logged in value. So in that case, you need to convert it into a string. So like this. So I will append a plus symbol, so that will concatenate and convert it into a string. So now you can see you get this false value. So there are multiple ways of converting anything to string. So you can use template literal syntax, dollar of is logged in. So this will also work and it will display that false value. You can also use is logged in dot toString. So toString method is JavaScript method which you can use to convert anything to string. That also works. And here whatever you have expression, so this toString method returns some value. That's why you are able to use it here. So here let's say I am using name. So while displaying name, string gets displayed, there is no issue. So I can use any operation on this name. So I can convert it into two uppercase. So I can call function here. So you can see now it's everything is in uppercase. So you can call function, you can do anything, you can concatenate anything, like add exclamation mark to here, and that will get displayed here. Anything which will return value. So I can also declare a function. So get name. This function, from this function I can return name, and I can call this function here, and it will correctly display that. So instead of Mike, if I use Jerry, you can see Jerry is getting displayed. So anything which returns some value, you can use that in curly bracket. And if you want to display any dynamic value, you have to use curly bracket. So this is a static text I want to display. So I don't want dynamic value here. So you don't need to store that in some variable. You can directly write, because this is all HTML syntax. So inside HTML, you write some JavaScript code, inject some JavaScript. So whatever dynamic value or external variable you want to use, you add it in curly bracket. What you cannot use inside curly bracket is something which you does not return what you can say expression. So let's say I have variable declaration. So I can use const name or age equal to 20. So this is a variable declaration. It does not return anything. So I cannot use it here. So when I cannot use console.log. So console.log, also does not return anything. So it will print that hello. So you can say hello is printing, but you are not getting it anything here, because by default when I say console.log hi, you will see hi printed, but next line is undefined. So whatever written by console.log will be, console.log does not return anything, so you will get undefined. So if I use this get name function and which does not return anything, so what will happen? When you write a function which does not return anything, by default undefined will be returned. So you can see you are not getting anything. So when you have something which is undefined, React ignores. So as I said, when I call it get name here, you don't get anything here, because React ignores undefined, null and boolean value. That is actually a good thing. So if you have something, so if let's say I have a user object, name Mike, age 30. So I want to check if username exists. So what I can do, I can add a condition here. So if user.name exists, then I will return welcome Mike. Or here I want to add dynamic value. So I can use template literal syntax. So anytime you want a dynamic value in a string, you use this ES6 template literal. So dollar of user dot name. So if name exists, you will get that welcome Mike message. So let me remove this is locked in. So here you will get that welcome Mike message. You can see welcome Mike is printed. But let's say name does not exist. Now what will happen here? It will not go inside this if condition, and directly this function will return. So you don't have to manually check if it exists or not and return undefined like this. This is not required. So by default, when you don't return anything from function, undefined will be returned. So now you will not see anything. You can see it's an empty paragraph, because you have created a paragraph which, and you are returning something from the function, and function is returning undefined. So this is same as writing undefined. And when you have undefined, the React does not display that. You have empty paragraph. So you can add this condition here also. So let's say instead of creating function just for this simple condition, you can use logical and operator. So I can use here user dot name exist. So you can add double and here I will display this message welcome, then user dot name. So here let me make it div, because we have p inside p, which will give you error. You cannot have two paragraphs inside another. So you can see welcome to React and it's empty right now. Why? Because name does not exist. So if I add name here, now you can see Mike is getting displayed. So div with paragraph inside, welcome Mike. So this is known as conditional logical and operator in JavaScript. This is not React specific. So when you have something which returns some value, so how logical and operator works? So it's not, it does not return true or false. It returns a value. So if I have true here and I am printing hi, you get hi. So until something is truthy or until some value is truthy, JavaScript will keep checking and the last truthy value will be returned. Now instead of hi, I add hello here. So it will return hello. So last truthy value hello. So until something is true, you keep executing. So similarly here you can see this name exists. So this is a truthy value. So it will return the next thing, because this is the last statement after and. So it will return that welcome. If something is false, then you immediately get false. This code will not be executed. So if you have undefined, it will be undefined. So you immediately get undefined and next code does not get executed. So here when name does not exist, this will be undefined. And a result of this entire expression will be undefined. Because whenever you get falsy value, that will be immediately returned. So what is falsy values in JavaScript, there are only 8 falsy values in JavaScript. So null, undefined, false, not a number, 0, minus 0, and big int 0, and this string, empty string. So only these are the falsy values in JavaScript. So if you have something which returns any one of these, then it's a falsy value. Otherwise, everything is truthy. So if I have 10 here and I write hello, this is a truthy value. Even if I enter empty value, this is a truthy value. So even if it's empty, it's a truthy value because it's not in this list of 8 falsy values. So only these are falsy values. Other than that, if you use anything, that is a truthy value. So I use any 10 number. 10 is a number which exists, so it will return high here. So last truthy value you will get always. When I use NaN, not a number, you get NaN because this is a falsy value. And when something is falsy, you will immediately get that false value. Next code will not be checked. So this is how AND operator works, logical AND operator. Let me bring this back. So you have name, age, and you can, there is also ternary operator. So you can add question mark here, add here. So if something exists, then display welcome name. Otherwise, let's say I want to display welcome guest. So you can see if I refresh, you see welcome mic because this mic name exists. If I remove this, you will see welcome guest. So when something does not exist, this is a ternary operator you can use. This is if condition. If it exists, execute this code. Otherwise, execute code after this colon. So that is ternary, and you should use one ternary. Like don't nest these ternary operations. Like if this exists, execute this. Otherwise, again writing extra conditions like if user dot age exists, then do something age found, else write this. You can see you can write this like this also. So age found, what happens? User dot name exist? No, there is no name. So it will go here. It will check user dot age exist? Yes. So it will display age found. But this is difficult to understand what's going on. So you should never go beyond one ternary operator. So like this, you should have only one. So this is JSX expression. You can use anything which returns a value. So if I want to write this user, let's say I want to display this user. So what is user? User is the object, and React does not know how to render object because there is no behavior. Like you want to display colon side by side values or comma separated. React does not know by default. So when you use direct any object, you will get error. Objects are not valid as React child. So you cannot display object in React, but you can use properties of those objects and those will get displayed. So those will get displayed. You can see it works. So here, okay. So you need to remember object does not get displayed. And now we are done a string, number, and this is a Boolean object. And what about arrays? So let's say I have numbers array 10, 20, 30, 40. So I want to display these numbers. So if I directly write this here instead of age, now these will get displayed. So how it displays? They displayed side by side 10, 20. So how it displays is like this. So you have 10, 20, 30, 40. So each element will be displayed as in a single separate JSX expression syntax. So if I save, you can see both are same, exactly same. This one is also same. So when you are displaying an array, they are displayed like this side by side. Each element is displayed in a JSX expression. Instead of directly using this, you can also use this numbers array. So instead of manually mentioning those numbers, you can directly use this numbers array and it will get displayed. You can see it still works. So object does not get displayed, but arrays get displayed. They are displayed side by side. So now I can display, let's say instead of 10, there is a paragraph 10. So this also works. You can see everything is displayed side by side. So you have different paragraphs which are displaying, you are displaying here. So this will be like you are displaying a div, and inside this you have paragraph 10. So this is also valid. Directly writing this is also valid. Let me add horizontal line here. You can see 10 is getting displayed. So you can directly write JSX expression. So here you can see we have added condition. So here is one opening bracket of curly bracket. Here inside that we have another curly bracket. So you can nest curly bracket, that is allowed. Here also you can add some extra conditions. 10 is greater than 0. Then display, let's say paragraph. I want to display name. Name is CSTF. So here when you write any condition, so only hard coded values you can write. If you want to add any JavaScript expression, you need to add it in curly bracket. So 10 is greater than 0. Here this is ending paragraph, and close it here. So you can see Jerry is getting displayed. What we are doing, we are checking 10 is greater than 0, then we are displaying this paragraph. And this is extra paragraph. So if you want, you can remove it. That is not needed. And this curly bracket is also not needed. So you can directly display any paragraph. So Jerry is correctly getting displayed. So you can nest JSX expression one inside another. You display an array. So here I am displaying this numbers array. You will get a warning. So if you see console, each child in a list should have a unique key. So this is very important. Whenever you are displaying array, you need to remember that you add a unique key. So you need to add a key here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can see there is no error. So what happens is whenever you are declaring an array, React identifies which element is changed and which is not changed using key. So this key should be unique in that particular array. It's not required to be unique for the entire application. So you can have another array. So let's say numbers 1. Here I will display numbers 1. So both are numbers 1. Yes. So you can see there is no error. Let me add horizontal line here. You can see both the numbers are displayed and there is no warning here. Even though the keys are same, you can see key 1 I am using here, I am using it here also. So it's not required to be unique for entire application. Only for that particular array, that key need to be unique. If I use that duplicate key, so this already exists and you are again using, then you will get a warning here. You can see encounter 2 children with same key. Key should be unique so the components maintain their identity. So when the component re-render, like application re-render, you will see that later. Whenever it re-renders, the key should be same. It should not change. If it's changed, React will recreate that element. And recreating something is time consuming and it will be like you will have some performance issue. So whenever you are declaring an array, you always make sure to have a unique key. Keys are not displayed anywhere. So if I see, you can see there is no key displayed, but you need to add that key. React uses that key to identify which keys, which elements are changed. So here, this is a paragraph. So I can add ID here. ID gets displayed. So if you want to add any, you can see here how I added this one. I'm not adding one. I can add like this also. So here also I can add like this. But if you have something which is dynamic, you cannot add like this. So this is not a dynamic. So let's say I want to use this number here. So it does not work like this. So here, add number here. So you will see Keys does not display, but if you have some other attribute like id class, they will get displayed. So here for this, you can see what you get is the exact static string whatever you have included number. So when you want to actually interpolate or display any dynamic value, you don't need this like a JSX expression syntax. So anything which is dynamic, you use JSX syntax. So here you can see now you correctly get that value 10. So now this is like, but usually you will not get array. So suppose this data is coming from the API. So in API, you will not have paragraphs, or you will have just values 10, 20, 30, 40. And you want to display these numbers. So right now what's happening, if I refresh, you can see this is an array. So it correctly displays. But let's say instead of this one. So they are displayed side by side. So instead of this, I want that to be in paragraph, just like as we did before. So here what you can do is you can use map method. So as I said, inside JSX expression, you use anything which returns some value or expression. So expression is something which returns a value. So what map method return? Array map method returns a new array. So here I can say for individual number, I want to return that whatever number I have. So here you will get exact same result 10, 20, 30, 40. Why? Because I am just returning an array as it is. But I want to display a paragraph here. And now I cannot write this number. So what is this? Is a JSX expression like curly bracket. And in curly bracket, as I said, if you want to write anything static, you write it as it is. And when you want to insert any dynamic value, you use curly bracket. So what is happening here? This is a JSX expression. So you have open curly bracket. Now you want to display this number. If I don't add curly bracket here, you will get exactly number printed. You can see number. So if you want dynamic value, you need to add that in curly bracket. Now you will get those actual values 10, 20. So here also, this is how you can display any JSX. This is a common way. So if you want to render any array or display any array or render a list in React, you always use map method. Why? Because map method returns a new array of exact same length. So numbers, whatever numbers array, it has 4 elements. So you will get exact 4 elements, and whatever you return will be written as it is. So you can modify also. If I want numbers plus 1, you will get each element one number more, like 11, 21, 31, like that. So whatever you return, you can use map method, but you cannot use for each. There is a difference between map and for each method. For each method does not return anything. So even if you return something, it will not be there. So if I say these numbers, say numbers dot for each, you will get number. And if I write number, return number, write result, you can see a result is undefined. Why? Even though you are returning a number, so these numbers are getting printed. So number, you can see numbers 10, 20, 30. These are printed, but result is undefined. Because by default, even though you are returning something from for each is not designed to return anything. So even if you return, it will not return anything. It will always return undefined. So that's why you don't use for each here. So if you see here after welcome, you have only one array like 10, 20. If I inspect, this is an empty div. It does not contain anything. So this is horizontal line, and here you don't have anything because this for each returns undefined. So you have, this is similar to directly using undefined. So when I use undefined, you are not displaying anything. You can say it's empty. So you always use array map method. Map method returns an array. And whenever, as I said, whenever you are displaying an array, you need a key. So if you see console, you have this warning, each child should have a key. So you add a key. Here, important thing is you should not use index. So map method has some parameters which automatically gets passed. So first is the actual value, second is the index, and third is the actual array. So this is the numbers array. So here if I use map, this is number, index, and array. So if I print number, index, array, this this. So you can see you get 10. So the element, then the index. So 10 element, this is the entire array, original array. So first is the actual element, second index is the actual index, zeroth index, then the array. Then second element 20, then the index is 1 and the array. So map method, for each method, all of these will get these particular parameters. So for each also has the same parameter. So if I use for each here, you can see you get exact same result, but for each does not return anything. So similarly here, now for key, I can use index. So right now numbers I'm not using, so I can remove that. So you can see here, let me remove this result. Where is result? This one. So here now you can see these are getting displayed correctly and you don't have warning here. So you might think index it works and you can give index, but there is a issue. When you are changing the order, as I said, whenever you display array, you need to have the same key even on re-render. So let's say I have a button here, which is for removing that particular element from that array. So when you remove that particular element, right now numbers contains 10, 20, 30, 40. And when you remove one of the element, let me write function remove. So this is the numbers array. So to remove, you can use filter method or splice method, array splice. So from numbers array, I want to remove one element from position 1. So I will pass that position here. Now to add any event handler, so this is a React code. So if you are working with JavaScript, you might see this on click handler where you write function like alert hello. This works in JavaScript. So right now you will see remove, but when I click, you can see it does not work. You can see there is warning, invalid event handler property on click. So when you are working with React, all the attributes, event handlers you have, they are camel case. So C should be capital. So you can see here, did you mean on click? So on click, on change. So everything, second letter should be capital, camel case. Click on this, you can see you are getting error. Expected on click listener to be function. So when you add on click handler, the value that you are adding has to be a function. So you need to define a function and then you can alert that, or I will console.log. So whatever value I have, number. So now when I click on remove, you can see 10 is getting printed. That is actually, I'm printing 10 plus 1. When I click on this, you can see 10. Click on this 20. Again 20, 30. So whatever you are clicking, we get that value. So to add any event listener, you need to camel case that attribute and you need to write a function. You don't write directly. So what will happen if you write it directly? So this code, whenever browser renders, like React render this will be executed immediately. So this number you will see immediately. Number printed. You can see number printed. You are seeing this 4 times because you are looping through this map method. So you are printing this number 4 times. So you are not executing this when you click on this. So you have directly mentioned that. So if you want to execute something when clicked, you need to add an function there. So that function will be executed when you click on that. So that's the use of this on click handler. So when I click, then you will get that event. So this is here you need to remember always define a function. So you can define this function separately, or you can, now we have already remove method. So I can use remove. And for this, by default, you can directly use remove. So what will happen? This index will not be passed, it will be event. So you are adding event handler. So this function, whatever you have defined, you will get event here. So if I print event, so when I click on this, you can see you get synthetic event. So synthetic event is a wrapper around HTML event. So inside this, you will see event somewhere. You can say native event. So native event, the actual HTML event, and this synthetic event is React specific. So you get this event which has exact same properties of normal event. So you can do event.prevent default and all other things you can do. So now by default event is getting passed, but I don't want event. I want that index which I clicked. So how can you do it? You can define inline function. Now this will receive event, and I will not use that. I will directly call remove method, and I will pass that index. I want index, not number. So which element I have clicked, that is the index. Now here you will get, here I print before and after. So you can see event we are not using, so you can actually remove this. So now if I clear and click on remove, you can see index is not, if oh, this should be index. When I click on remove, you can see 10, 20, what we are doing from, oh, this should be from position, from index, remove one element. So splice, for splice, you pass the start index from where, and you want to delete how many elements. So every time I click on this, from this position, I want to delete one element. So if I click on this, you can see now you don't have 10. So when I click on 10, now 10 is removed. I just have 20, 30, 40. So if I click on 30, you can see now what happened now. Now you have an issue here. So I clicked on 30, and what is getting removed? 40 is getting removed, because initially it is at 30, position 3. So 10 is 0, this is 1, then 2, 3. But now whenever I remove that element, now you have different index. So your index changes. Now this index is removed. Array contains only 3 elements. So your index changes. And whenever the index changes, React will recreate that element. So whenever the key changes, because you are using index as a key, whenever the key changes, React will recreate that element again. So you can have here any component also, my component. And whenever your key changes, React will recreate that component. It will recreate all the states. It will reinitialize that. That is a performance issue. You don't want to. So if I just increment counter in the application or click somewhere, you don't want to recreate everything again and again. That is a performance issue. That's why key is very important. Where if you are changing something, so this numbers array you are looping over. So if you are changing the order of those numbers, or if you are removing any of the elements, you should not use index. If you are sure that these numbers will be only displayed, there will not be any removal, or there will not be any sorting. So even if you sort, their key will change, index will change, because you are using index, and that is used as a key. So when it changes, React will recreate everything from scratch again. But if you keep that key same, it will not recreate that. So here usually you should have a unique value. So right now numbers array contains unique numbers. That's why I'm able to use this key which is a unique. But you will not have that unique numbers all the time. So you should have unique ID which you can generate or you can store. So usually you will have an array of objects. So you have users array, and in each you have name Mike, age 30, This is one user. This is another. So usually you will be displaying users, and each user you add a unique key, unique ID. So that way it will remain as it is. Now this users array, I can display it here. Users dot map for individual user. I will return that. What I will return? I will return a new div. And in that div, let me print a paragraph. So you can see we have lot of nesting. So this is JSX expression. So for individual, I am returning a new JSX. So it is a div. I will display name. So name is static. I want to display, but the actual name I want dynamic. So I will use curly bracket. User dot name, and it also have age. User dot age. My component. Oh, where is my component? User, it should be users, not users. So you can see name Mike, age 30, name Jerry, age 40. Let me add HR here. You can see you get those numbers getting displayed. And now you can see there is a warning again. Because you are rendering an array, you need a unique key. And that unique key is user.id. So each user in this particular users array as an ID property. So whenever you are displaying array of objects, always make sure you have unique ID. If you don't have, you need to create that, but don't use index as a key. So when that changes, you will have performance issue. If you are displaying 100 users, list of users, and you are using index as the key, when that key changes, you are editing or removing that element or sorting that list, you will recreate everything again and again. So that will cause some performance issues. It will take some time. So your application will become slow. So that's why key is very important. Using key, React identifies if something is changed or not. During each re-render, like every time you click or do something, it should have same key. So when it's the same key, React will not recreate that. So each of these has a key. So it's not added. Let me add user.id. Yeah, here it is. So each has a unique key that should remain as it is when even the page is reloaded, like component is re-rendered. So how component will re-render? So what is the issue right now? If you see when I click on remove, it's actually getting removed, but on UI, I don't see that. Why? Because how you will see on this UI when you call react-dom.render. So here I am calling react-dom.render. And this is getting executed only once when the first time this page is index.js executed. I'm not telling React to re-render that thing, whatever change. So what we need to do is we need to write this, whatever changing inside a function. So I can say render. And I will add this inside. So now this render method, I will call. So what happens initially, you will see all the data because I have added everything in a render method, and this render method inside that I have react-dom.render. Now I am calling render. Now every time I remove element, I will call that render method. So it will again re-render. So now I will call this render. So what is happening? Once I remove element, I am calling render. So what React will do? React will check if what is changed, and it will re-render that JSX component, JSX whatever you have provided. So now when I click on remove, you can see 10 is removed on the UI because you are telling to re-render. But this does not mean that React will recreate everything. So there are two things how React improves performance. When you are using array, React uses key to identify if something is changed or not. And if you are having JSX, here you don't have key. So how React identifies if something is changed? By the position. So for each JSX, it creates a tree element on a particular tree. So this will be at position 0, and this is H1 element. This is div. This is on second element, second position. So React will check if this is changed. So previously, the DOM, previous DOM and current DOM, it compares. Is there any change? So previously it was H1. Now when you call render, is it H1 or H2? If it's same H1, it will not recreate anything in between. So this div is present before itself, means before when you render this first time also. It's not changed. Only changed is whatever data. Here nothing is changed, but here it's changed. So if you see this div, is this div changed to H1 or paragraph? No. So when I click on this remove button, this div is not changed. What is changed is numbers you are displaying. So if you see here, inspect this. Let me show you counter here. Let me add counter so you will understand. Counter 0 initially. Let me declare it late, and I will add a button. I will display that counter value here. This should be div. I will add button increment. Now on click of this button, I will increment that counter. Increment. Increment counter plus plus. I will call render. Now what I'm doing, I on every click of this, I'm incrementing the counter and again calling this render. So now if you see this counter 0 value, so keep closer look at this div, what is changing. So when I click on increment, you can see only flash for that particular counter. There is no flash for this counter text. So now if I say this is button, if I make it P and if I press enter, you can see there is a flash. So when something flash, that means that element is changed. But in this case, if I inspect this counter again, you will see only flash at this 0. So it will change, but this counter text is not changing. Even these buttons and nothing is changing. So this, whatever you are displaying, welcome guest, if I increment, that is not changing because that is not flashing. So if something is changing, it will flash. So React uses virtual DOM algorithm to identify if something is changed. So it creates a tree-like structure where each of the element that you are rendering will be put in a specific position. So this is at position 1 inside this JSX. This is at second position, and it checks if that tag is changed, any attribute is changed. So if you add some attribute here, let's say counter, welcome to React. So this counter is changing. So if you see, when I increment this, you can see one value is changed, but that ID is not flashed, H1 is not flashed. So React identifies what is changed by virtual DOM algorithm. So how it identifies that? So this JSX, if you print what is JSX, you will get the object back. You can see this is the JSX. It has props. Now it has so many children. So everything that you are displaying, so this is the first children, H1. So you can see this is the first object of type H1. Now what it displays? It just displays this welcome to React. So inside this, you have props with ID 0, children, welcome to React. So what I'm changing on every time, I'm just changing the ID. So React compare these objects. So when you write any JSX, every JSX is converted to React.create element call, and that React.create element is converted to an object. So every React.create element is converted to an object like this. So it will have props as the property. So if I display, so instead of this JSX, I write JSX equal to H1 welcome. Now what you see the single children. You can see props which has a children property. Now instead of this, if I add a div, this will be h1, this will be paragraph. Hello. Now you have three elements. So you can see this is the outer type div. So this is one div. So this is one JSX element. It has props. So it has two children. So these are two children. So each children, this is the first children. So this first children is type h1. So React identifies what is this type. Type means tag that you are using. And this particular content goes inside this children. So React identifies by comparing those objects. So it remembers or stores the previous object and current object, and it compares them, what is actually changed. So does this prop change? So when I click on this increment button, if I have ID, let's say counter. So when I add counter here type, so this I have added for h1. So for the first element, you have ID of 0 and children of welcome. So when you increment next time ID, it checks whether that ID is changed. Yes. So it does not recreate this entire object. It will just change this particular ID, and then it will use render that, because we are using react.render. So only things which are changed will be re-rendered on the UI. So even though I am re-rendering this entire JSX, does not mean React will recreate everything. React remembers every position of every JSX element that you have created. So it creates a DOM like a tree structure. It compares every element with the previous element structure, like a JSON structure. All the objects are compared. What is changed? Those elements are only changed. So in this counter h1 is not changed every time I click on increment. So only the ID value is changed. So this ID is changed every time you click on this. So React will not recreate this entire h1. So it only updates whatever updated. So counter is the only thing which gets updated. So here you will see flash for only one. Div is not updated, counter is not updated, whatever updated, that only render. So that's why React is performance benefit is there for performance improvement. So it will not recreate everything. So even though we mention re-display again, it's not recreating everything, because it remembers every element's type. This is a div. So type, you can see type is a div, and it has props. So it has these children. So children is all the JSX elements. You have 11 elements rendered here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you have elements rendered. So React compares these objects, and using that comparison, it identifies what is changed. So that's why you always need to have key if you are using array, and if you are not using any array, then you need to remember, don't change the order or don't change the elements on re-render. If it's changed, React will recreate.